The legend of Himiko, the first queen of Japan, tells of a powerful sorceress who ruled through dark magic, spreading death and destruction. She was eventually stopped by an army of her own generals, who bound her to an uninhabitable island in the middle of the Devil's Sea. Eager to trace the legend, Lord Richard Croft discovered a speck on an old map marking the island, vowing to reach it, even if it meant leaving behind his beloved daughter, Lara Croft. In a boxing ring, Lara faces off against an opponent but ends up getting cooked. Back in the locker room, her friend Sophie playfully teases her about the loss before heading out. Terry, the gym owner, reminds Lara of her outstanding bills and the no pay, no play rule, urging her to get a job. She heads straight to her courier job, arrives at the restaurant on time, and picks up an order for delivery. The owner's son tries to ask her out, with subtle encouragement from his parents, but chickens out at the last minute. Soon after, Lara participates in a high-stakes bike race, volunteering to be the fox leading the chase, with a paint trail for the others to follow. She's in it for the prize money already placed on the race. Using her quick thinking and agility, she manages to stay ahead, but loses focus when she spots a man who looks like her father. When he turns, she realizes it's not him, just in time to swerve around an open car door. Unfortunately, she crashes into a police car up ahead, making the other bikers disperse. At the station, Anna, Richard's associate, comes to bail her out. She questions why Lara keeps getting into trouble. When Lara says she needs money, Anna reminds her of the inheritance she has yet to claim. Lara refuses it, bitter that Richard has been gone for 7 long years. She'd rather earn her own money than accept anything from the man she believes abandoned her. Anna tries to persuade her, revealing the police stopped searching for Richard 5 years ago. It's clear he's not coming back, and everything he worked for, including the manor, will be sold if Lara doesn't step up. At home, Lara reminisces about her childhood, about the day Richard left.
But I'll miss you.
Oh no, I miss you too.
He promised to return and gave her a magical amulet to hold on to whenever she missed him. The next morning, she arrives at Croft Holdings, seemingly ready to claim her inheritance. The receptionist mistakes her for a courier based on her appearance, but is stunned to learn she is Lara Croft. Upstairs, the lawyer Mr. Yaff and Anna present her with documents to sign. Before she does, Yaffe brings out a karakuri, a Japanese puzzle box. In the event of Richard's passing, it was meant to be given to Lara, though only after signing the papers. Lara takes it anyway and begins trying to solve the puzzle, noting Richard used to have many like it she could never figure out as a child. To everyone's surprise, it clicks open, revealing 2 folded papers and a key. One is a photo of Lara and Richard, stirring her emotions. The other is a note that reads, "The first letter from my final destination." An idea sparks, and Lara quickly excuses herself, leaving the documents unsigned. At Croft Manor, she finds a passage and, using the note to decipher, unlocks a hidden door, revealing an underground basement. Lara is surprised to find all sorts of artifacts and maps in the basement, along with several of Richard's passports. Spotting a video camera, she plays a recording he left for her. In the message, Richard explains why he had to leave, revealing that his search for the supernatural was his way of feeling close to Lara's late mother. He pleads with her to burn all his research on Himiko immediately, fearing the information could become dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands. Lara finds the box containing the Himiko research, and instead of burning it, she opens it. Well, who wouldn't? She listens to Richard's recordings, learning more about Himiko as she pores over the documents. Among them, she finds a letter from Lu Ren, a captain in Hong Kong who had agreed to take Richard to the island where he believed Himiko was bound. Determined to follow the lead, Lara makes a decision. The next day, she heads to a pawn shop to sell the amulet Richard gave her. She explains its origin and value to Alan, the shop owner, but it's clear he doesn't believe her. When his wife examines the necklace and whispers something to him, he finally agrees to make an offer. He hands her some money, But when she asks for a little more, mentioning her father's passing, he removes a bill instead. He claims he's heard that excuse too many times. Lara is stunned, and when he pulls off another note, she grabs the cash before he can take more, then throws his coffee on him before storming out. Upon arriving in Hong Kong, Lara begins asking around for Lu Ren. A group of boys pretend to help her, only to snatch her bag. She gives chase, eventually tackling one and retrieving it. However, the tables quickly turn when one of the boys pulls a knife, forcing her to run. She jumps onto a boat, and luckily, it happens to be Lu Ren's. She calls for help as the boys surround her, but just as things almost escalate, the captain emerges with a rifle, scaring them off. Lara thanks him, but Lu Ren turns the rifle on her, telling her to get off his boat. However, he collapses, drunk. Inside, she wakes him by spraying water on his face and begins telling him about the letter she found. He reveals it was his father, not him, who sent it. Coincidentally, his father also disappeared 7 years ago, just like Richard. This convinces Lara that their fathers went to the same island. She pulls out her maps and documents and manages to pinpoint Yamatai, the island where their fathers disappeared. Lara suggests it could be a chance for adventure, but Lu Ren, however, refuses. The island lies in the heart of the Devil's Sea, and he no longer cares about his father's disappearance. But when Lara offers him money, he changes his mind, and the two set off for the Devil's Sea. During the voyage, Lara pores over Richard's notes, trying to decipher clues to the tomb of Himiko. The ancient Nihongi chronicles describe a series of deadly trials awaiting anyone who enters, crossing the chasm of souls, facing the faces of Himiko, confronting her army of 1,000 handmaidens, and finally reaching her resting place, only to unleash her scourge. In his recordings, Richard warns that his research is being watched by the Order of Trinity, an ancient militant organization bent on harnessing supernatural forces to control the fate of mankind. Taking a break, Lara steps out to admire the sea. She opens up to Lu, wondering if Richard had gone mad chasing these legends, before heading in to rest. That night, she dreams of a memory with her father, but is abruptly awakened by a violent storm. It turns out they've indeed gotten to the Devil's Sea. Lara rushes to the control panel to join Lu, but the storm intensifies, and the boat begins to lose control. Lu informs her they'll have to abandon ship to survive and fires a flare gun into the sky. But Lara can't bear to lose Richard's research. Ignoring Lu's protest, she runs back to retrieve the documents. Unfortunately, as she heads back out, a powerful wave slams into the vessel, knocking her down. Thankfully, Lu rushes in and helps her up. She points out the lifeboat and he begins untying it. Another wave crashes through, throwing Lu overboard. With the boat now crumbling around her, Lara takes a brave leap into the raging sea. Battling the violent currents, she manages to swim toward shore, calling out for Lu until something strikes her on the head. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself inside a tent with a stranger watching her. She frantically looks around for her bag. The man gestures toward it but keeps it close to him. He introduces himself as Matthias Vogel and offers her some food. He explains that he can't return home until his work on the island is complete, though he gives a vague answer when Lara asks what kind of work he's doing. She grabs the bag and begins searching inside, but he shows her Richard's journal on Himiko, revealing that she has brought him the very thing he's been searching for. When Lara asks how he knows Richard, Vogel admits that Richard refused to cooperate, claiming he was trying to save the world. Lara asks where her father is, and Vogel coldly tells her that he assassinated Richard. Stunned, Lara stumbles outside, only to be grabbed by a mercenary and forced to move along. She sees armed guards and exhausted slave workers hauling crates stamped with the logo of a company called Patna. Tied up and helpless, Lara spots Lu among the laborers. Vogel announces they're moving camp.
We're moving camp!
As they walk, Lara quietly asks Lu who the workers are. He replies that some are shipwrecked fishermen, while others, just unlucky souls. Lara tells him that Vogel claimed to have taken Richard's life. Lu also shares that his father suffered the same fate. She apologizes for dragging him into this, but he brushes it off with a joke about them still being alive. They arrive at a site that matches a sketch from the journal, delighting Vogel. As the workers begin setting up, an older man collapses from exhaustion. When he's unable to continue, the mercenaries shout at him to get up. Lou and Lara try to intervene, but Vogel pulls out a gun and shoots the man without hesitation. Shocked, Lara and Lou freeze. Vogel then turns the gun on Lara, who flinches in fear, but he eventually lowers the weapon. In that moment of distraction, Lou strikes a guard and shouts for Lara to run. Chaos erupts as gunfire breaks out. Lara sprints for her life while Lou takes out a sniper from his position. But before he can escape, Vogel shoots him in the shoulder. Lara reaches a bridge but gets shot at and tumbles into the river below. She manages to swim while dodging bullets, and the current sweeps her away. Vogel instructs the men not to pursue her, telling them he'll send someone to retrieve her if she survives. Then he knocks Lou unconscious. The river carries Lara toward a deadly cliff. She tries to grab hold of anything to slow herself, but the current is too strong. Just as she's about to plunge over the edge, she grabs onto a suspended metal beam. Dangling above the gorge, she manages to pull herself up, but the structure groans under her weight, cracking in the middle. Deciding to risk it, she runs toward the edge just as the metal breaks off, leaping to the other side. She eventually makes it inside and begins cutting the rope off her hand. However, it seems the sea is out to get her, as the metal structure starts breaking apart with the current. She holds onto an edge, but is tossed around when the metal somersaults. Just as she's about to get her bearings, the surface beneath her cracks. She manages to pull a parachute and opens it just in time as she plummets. She lands deep in the forest but realizes a piece of metal is lodged in her belly. In immense pain, she pulls it out and forces herself to move toward the shore. Looking out, the harsh realization dawns. There's no way off the island without external help. Later that night, a mercenary catches up to her and tries to drag her back to camp. Lara bites down on his arm in a desperate attempt to escape. They engage in a brutal fight, with the man trying to choke her, but Lara manages to overpower him, ultimately drowning him in the water. Afterward, she spots a man watching. He bolts, and Lara follows. She calls for him to stop, but he ignores her, using a rope to scale a rock. Determined, she climbs after him. At the top, she sees the man lighting a fire and cautiously approaches, only to be stunned to realize it's Richard. He mumbles that she isn't real, trying to ignore her, but Lara calls to him. When she shows him the way he always kisses her forehead, Richard tears up, finally realizing it's really his daughter. But the pain from her injury worsens, and he rushes to her side, hugging her tightly. He begins treating her with the supplies he has. Before she passes out from the pain, she makes him promise to never leave her again. The next morning, the mercenaries blow up a section and discover the tomb entrance. Vogel uses his satellite phone to alert Trinity and request transport. Lara wakes to find herself alone and panics, but then sees Richard shaving outside. She joins him, and he opens up, telling her that leaving her was the hardest thing he ever did. When he tried to return, he realized Himiko wouldn't let him leave. Trinity had sent Vogel to find the tomb and awaken Himiko to claim her power, so Richard stayed to stop them. He's relieved, thinking they can't access the tomb without his research, until Lara reveals she didn't destroy it. Furious, he accuses her of endangering the world, but Lara defends herself, insisting she wouldn't have found him otherwise. He warns that if the tomb is opened, Himiko's curse will be unleashed. He feels her coming to the island was a mistake, which deeply hurts Lara, since all she wanted was to know what happened to him. But Richard explains he was only trying to protect her. As long as the tomb stayed hidden, she was safe. Still, he admits he underestimated her courage. Lara insists they must get off the island, suggesting they use Vogel's satellite phone to call for help. Richard argues it's impossible with Vogel's army. Refusing to give up, Lara grabs his bow and arrows and heads out alone. She reaches the camp and sneaks into Vogel's tent. Just as he storms in,
And another one, and another one.
furious over the missing code to open the tomb. Lara slips out undetected and circles to the back, where she finds Lou and the workers. As a mercenary turns, she takes him down with an arrow, then rushes over to the rest, telling them to grab weapons while she finds a way out. Gunfire erupts as they attempt to flee. Lara tells Lou to lead the men to safety while she goes for the satellite phone. She grabs it and runs, only to stop when she spots Richard at the tomb's entrance. Amid the firefight, Lou's gun runs out of bullets. He grabs another from a fallen mercenary and instructs one of the workers to lead the rest, declaring that he's not leaving without Lara. Meanwhile, Vogel approaches Richard from behind, and a mercenary knocks him down with the butt of a gun. Vogel tells him to open the tomb, insisting it's time he reunites with his family after 7 long years. Richard warns that if the tomb is opened, he won't have a family left, but Vogel, unmoved, strikes him again. When Richard refuses to cooperate, Vogel gives the mercenary permission to shoot. Just as the gun is raised, an arrow flies in, striking the mercenary down. Vogel aims his weapon at Richard while Lara keeps her bow trained on Vogel. Richard shouts at her to take the shot to stop Vogel from opening the tomb, but Vogel's gun is already pointed at him. He tells Lara to convince Richard to cooperate, adding that once transport arrives, they can all leave the island. Richard, however, has made peace with being shot. To him, one life is worth sacrificing to save millions. Vogel cocks his gun and Lara lowers her arrow. She hasn't come this far to see her father assassinated. To Richard's horror, she volunteers to open the tomb. Remembering the puzzle, she begins working through the codes, and finally, the mechanism clicks. The ancient barrier collapses completely. Vogel forces her to lead the way into the shadowy tomb. He and his team follow with Richard behind. Vogel orders the path to be marked by flare sticks so they can easily find their way back. As they venture deeper, Lara comes across skeletal remains. The air grows tense, and Richard shares that Himiko is still breathing. Vogel brushes this off and tells her to keep moving. But when Lara steps forward, a trigger pops, echoing through the tomb and making everyone freeze. Just as they think the coast is clear, a mercenary is plunged with a metal and yanked below the ground. Richard realizes that the tomb was never meant to let people out. Rather, it was built to keep them in. Vogel drops a flare, illuminating a sea of bones. Lara realizes they've entered the chasm of souls. One of the mercenaries places a long ladder across the pit, and Vogel nods at Lara to go first. She steps carefully, the ladder creaking beneath her, but she regains balance and makes it across, and the others follow behind.
You go next.
They continue forward and discover a series of sculpted faces on the walls. Lara recognizes it's the next ordeal from the Nihongi Chronicles, pray to survive the faces of Himiko. Richard confirms they're getting close. Their flashlights catch an inscription. The Death Queen turns day to night. She must die to bring back life. Just then, one of the mercenaries steps on a trigger. A huge stone rolls forward, and he narrowly escapes, but another stone seals off the rest of the group. Suddenly, the floor begins collapsing, brick by brick. Lara is nearly pulled in, but Richard grabs her just in time. They scramble to find a solution. Lara spots a beam in the wall and sprints toward it, clutching onto the edge as the ground disappears beneath her. She realizes it's a keyhole and yells for the others to find the key. Recalling the clue, pray to survive, Richard locates the prayer wheels and opens one to retrieve a key. He throws her the red one, but nothing happens. He calls for others to search the rest prayer wheels. Vogel tosses orange, still no effect. Lara, remembering the inscription, guesses it's a color puzzle and asks for black, but it still doesn't work. Blue and white are thrown next, but the floor continues to fall. The tile beneath Lara collapses and she dangles, barely holding on. Vogel throws the last color yellow, but still no change. Taking a moment to study the inscription, Lara realizes the answer is the color of life. She takes the blue key and fits it into the hole, calling out for green. The mechanism responds, the floor halts its collapse, and the stone rolls away. That was a close call. They move forward. At Vogel's command, a flare is fired to illuminate the next path. Meanwhile, Lou still waits outside, growing restless. Determined to find Lara, he decides to head back, only for the other workers to join him. After all, Lou's father gave his life for them. Back in the tomb, Lara and Richard notices more skeletal remains embedded in the walls. Richard identifies them as the army of 1,000 handmaidens, loyal followers who took their own lives in ritual sacrifice to serve Himiko in the afterlife. Just ahead, Vogel discovers the coffin, drawing everyone's attention. As the mercenaries begin setting up the site, Richard tries one last time to reason with Vogel. But Vogel scoffs, claiming there's a line between myth and reality, and gives the order to open the stone coffin. Inside lies Himiko, preserved and still, but her painted face and body suddenly begin to shrivel, decaying into bone, startling everyone. After a few seconds, Vogel instructs the men to prepare her for transport, but something doesn't sit right with Lara. She reflects on the murals, observing that Himiko didn't look like a monster. If anything, the painting shows her walking willingly into the tomb. Lara recalls everything about Himiko, and also what Richard said about sacrifice. As the men prepare to lift Himiko, Lara stops them. She reveals her theory. Himiko sacrificed herself to protect the world. Just then, Himiko jolts upright, terrifying everyone. But it's only a mechanism. The mechanical wheel lowers her body again. Vogel isn't fazed, and he orders the men to continue. However, a dark swirl creeps up on one of the mercenaries' hand and spreads through his veins. Lara realizes Himiko was a carrier of a deadly disease. The infected mercenary begins shooting wildly, and everyone scrambles for cover. Vogel takes him down with some shots, then turns back to the coffin. Despite everything, he still believes Himiko is what Trinity wants, and the key to his return. Richard warns him that it will cause genocide if it's taken outside. Vogel compromises, sharing he'll only take a piece. He pulls out a pair of pliers and snaps off Himiko's finger, carefully bagging it. At that moment, Lara and Richard exchange a glance. She grabs a spanner and strikes the nearest mercenary, while Richard seizes the gun and shoots Vogel, wounding him. Vogel drops down in pain and hides behind a puller. He then tucks the bag into his shirt pocket. He fires back as Lara scrambles to reach a hidden weapon. When she can't, she bolts instead, prompting Vogel to send his men after her. Now it's just Richard and Vogel, two men hiding, guns drawn. They exchange shots until Vogel runs out of bullets. Richard steadies his aim, waiting, but he's blindsided by the second infected mercenary, who's now fully feral. Richard fights him off and shoots him in the face, but unfortunately gets scratched. Bloodied, Richard ties his wound. Elsewhere, Lara leads a mercenary into a trap, stepping on a pressure plate. Suddenly, sharp metal projectiles launch across the corridor. Lara ducks low, narrowly escaping, but the mercenary isn't as lucky. He's impaled instantly. She rushes back to Richard, urging him to come with her. But he stops her from coming close, revealing his infected arm. He tells her not to touch him. Instead, he asks her to stop Vogel, while he'll stay behind and blow up the tomb, burying Himiko once and for all. Lara breaks down. After 7 long years, she's only just gotten him back. She pleads for another way, but Richard assures her she's stronger than she knows. He tells her he spent all these years wishing he could see her grow, and now he has. She's his miracle. He kisses the air toward her, telling her he loves her, and she does the same. Fighting tears, Lara strengthens her resolve, turns, and runs. Guided by the flare light, she eventually finds Vogel on the ladder, trying to escape. Without hesitation, she leaps onto it, blocking his path. Just as Lara lunges to attack, Vogel swerves and throws them both off the ladder to the floor. He strikes her repeatedly, but she lands a punch to his groin, making him stagger. He recovers quickly and traps her in a chokehold. Drawing on her training from the boxing ring, Lara twists free and throws him off. But he retaliates by pressing down on her neck with brute force. Using the last of her strength, she hits him, breaking free and gasping for breath. Without hesitation, she shoves the ladder off the ledge, cutting off the only way out, much to Vogel's horror. Furious, Vogel grabs a pickaxe and charges at her. Meanwhile, Richard finishes placing the explosives and holds the grenade tight, his mind replaying memories of Lara as a child. Just as Vogel prepares to deliver the final strike to Lara, Richard pulls the pin. The explosion rips through the tomb, rocking the entire structure. The blast distracts Vogel. Lara takes her chance, kicks him hard, then slams a punch into his throat. He chokes, stumbling. Lara quickly reaches into his pocket, pulls out the bagged finger, and shoves it into his mouth. With a firm strike to his jaw, she forces him to swallow it. Still choking, Vogel stumbles back until Lara kicks him, sending him plummeting into the chasm of souls. However, the walls begin to collapse from the explosion. Lara grabs the pickaxe and runs, the floor crumbling beneath her. She leaps across a gap and drives the axe into the wall, using it as a grip. The rock starts breaking, but she climbs along it until her feet find solid ground. Everything shakes violently as she runs, crumbling all around her. Spotting a rope with a flashlight tied to it, she grabs on. The rope pulls her upward, but the rock unfortunately falls towards her. Outside, Lou and the workers scramble to remove rubble, calling for Lara with no reply. Just as Lou begins to lose hope, he sees movement in the rope and frantically digs around it. Thankfully, it's Lara. He pulls her out, relieved she's safe. The weight of her loss finally crashes in, and Lou immediately understands. Overhead, a chopper arrives and they all rush toward it. When the transport team tries to radio Vogel, they're ambushed by Lara and the others, forcing them to give everyone a ride home. Back in London, Lara signs the inheritance papers and thanks Anna. Yaffe hands her the assets of Croft, and Lara places Anna in charge of day-to-day operations. Once Anna leaves, Lara opens the files and immediately notices something odd. She rushes to the Croft Manor's secret basement and pulls out Richard's records on Trinity. Seeing Patna Company on the files, she remembers it was also on the island. Apparently, Patna Company is also on the list of companies Croft owns. Putting the pieces together, Lara realizes Anna is working with Trinity, which is actually everywhere in the world according to Richard. It seems Lara still has work to do. She heads back to the pawn shop to reclaim the amulet. Alan admits it's actually worth a fortune. When his wife appears, Lara spots a collection of weapons. She walks over, eyes scanning the display. She decides to take 2 high-grade armed pistols. Well, there's work to do.